Welcome, I'm Johnny Strider. Thanks for tuning in to learn about Wikido, what it is, and how it works. Let's get started. But first, a disclaimer. Wikido is and will always be a work in progress. Even the name Wikido is just a temporary code name for use until a more permanent brand name is picked. Not every design idea covered in this video is fully implemented, and what is already working is mainly in prototype form. Nonetheless, much progress has been made over the last 18 months. A lot of ideas have been tried and discarded, and the best ideas have emerged. With effort, we'll see most of what's described in this video implemented in the next 12 months or so. But that depends on you. From a legal point of view, Wikido is a joint venture between entities that are governed by the Wikido principles. It is documented by a joint venture agreement that each member entity signs. Each member entity is 100% owned by Wikido community members who are pledged to follow the Wikido principles. The entities are not the purpose of Wikido, they exist to serve the Wikido community by managing its assets. These assets are contained in license pools, and each member entity manages one or more of these pools, or they may share management of a pool. Under Wikido's Earn, Share, Grow ownership model, each member entity issues shares every quarter and distributes these shares to Wikido stakeholders based on objective assessments of each stakeholder's productivity in working for quarterly goals. The entities can do any legal business, for-profit, non-profit, or mixed purpose. Member entities can host startup projects to simplify and sustain early-stage businesses. If and when the hosted project is successful, its stakeholders can spin it out into an independent entity. The newly formed entity is not required to become a member of Wikido. Like any other entity, it can apply to join Wikido if it meets the required qualifications. Each member entity and all its owners is governed by the Wikido principles. Wikido exists to empower its stakeholders in the pursuit of worthy goals, to facilitate cooperation between stakeholders, for example, by building trust and understanding between stakeholders by pursuing shared goals. Finally, Wikido exists to promote ethical principles and their application in human enterprise, not for their own sake, but because these simple ethical principles provide a simple and broadly acceptable basis for fair and equitable cooperation. These principles can be summarized by just three words: peacemaking, integrity, and mutuality. Like any words, these words can be interpreted differently. Let's take a look at what they mean in the context of Wikido as defined by agreements that each stakeholder accepts. First, peacemaking. Each stakeholder agrees they won't sue other stakeholders, with very limited exceptions. Peacemaking also means not using force, threats of force, or fraud except as necessary, and no more than necessary to defend against aggression initiated by others. Don't start fights. Instead of litigation or force, stakeholders take on a duty to participate in peacemaking, sometimes called alternative dispute resolution or ADR. The Wikido ADR process calls for private discussion and negotiation first. This means no public shaming or smearing. If necessary, people in disagreement can bring their issue to a mutually acceptable mediator. If mediation is unsuccessful, the parties share the cost of hiring an arbitrator to reach a decision and settlement of the issue based on the Wikido principles. The decision of the arbitrator is legally enforceable. The principle of integrity means taking responsibility for keeping one's own promises. Nobody is perfect, and we all fall short of our promises sometimes. But having integrity means that we take responsibility for the damage caused by our failures to keep our own promises. Integrity also means being honest and transparent about our intentions, except when necessary to prevent a worse evil. It is better to be silent or even dishonest if speaking too plainly will cause real harm to innocent people. That doesn't mean you can lie to get what you want, of course. It means you must take responsibility for the impact of your promises and statements of fact to others. Mutuality. Mutuality means treating others with respect, as being entitled to the same treatment that we receive. It means reciprocity, that the obligations of others to us are equal to our obligations to them. In other words, mutuality means that hypocrisy is not acceptable. Mutuality means that everybody has the same essential right to life, liberty, and pursuit of their own well-being and happiness. Live and let live, to be sure, but more than that, to ask no more of others than we are obligated to give, to treat social obligations as mutual. All stakeholders in Wikido accept these three principles of peacemaking, integrity, and mutuality as the ethical basis for governance and conflict resolution. We've covered the basics, now let's dig into the details of Wikido. There are 4 levels of stakeholders. First, neighbors, who have accepted Wikido's peacemaking compact and join Wikido's private communication channel. Then, learners, who agree to all the Wikido principles, contribute a basic fee to support a shared resource pool, and gain access to learner benefits. Learners who are ready to take on an intermediate level of commitment and responsibility can become producers, which empowers them with a greater tool set for accomplishing goals. Creators take on more leadership responsibility than producers, including the responsibility for leadership in defining quarterly goals. In Wikido, all creators are also producers, all producers are also learners, and all learners are also neighbors. We all build on what we learn and can participate at the level of commitment we are ready for. Let's look at each of these levels in more detail. Being a neighbor is free. All neighbors sign the Peacemaker Compact by joining the Peacemaker Community channel. In the current Wikido prototype, this is a Signal channel, in which Signal is a free messaging application for smartphones and computers. Neighbors can receive offers for perks and invitations to events from Wikido and its stakeholders via the community channel, interact with their fellow peacemakers, and learn how to apply peacemaking principles to resolve issues that arise in the channel. Active neighbors can earn the Good Neighbor credentials from their fellow peacemakers, which may be useful for opening the door to future opportunities from Wikido and its stakeholders, or from other neighbors. These opportunities may include, for example, the opportunity to earn sponsorships or scholarships to advance to the learner level for those facing financial hardships. The Peacemaker channel is Wikido's primary portal to the wider world. Making the channel as inviting and as rewarding as possible will be a priority for Wikido. Everyone in Wikido, except for neighbors, are also learners, because all creators are also producers, and all producers are also learners. There's a basic monthly fee, which is used to fund shared resources of the learner level. Being a learner comes with a big step up in benefits. Learners become members of the Wikido license pool, where they can leverage their creativity by using assets placed in a community pool, and potentially earn royalties by contributing assets to the pool without losing ownership or control. The member listing with Relationship Facilitator goes far beyond what most professional networking states offer. Learners gain access to tool sets for enhancing their productivity. They also gain access to productivity incentive perks such as rebates, token distributions, and shared spending cards for pursuing community goals. They have full access to Wikido's ethically governed community, which encourages and rewards trust building. And they can fill their own reputation wallets with positive credentials from which they can exchange selected reputation information with other stakeholders. At the time this video was recorded, these functions are still in a concept or prototype stage. Wikido is dedicated to achieving their full functionality as soon as possible. Let's examine each of these benefits in more detail. License pools. Here's an overview of Wikido license pools. A license pool is a collection of assets governed by specific rules called a charter. Learners can only join learner license pools. Creators can create license pools. Producers and creators can join any license pool in Wikido by agreeing to the license pool charter. The contributions may be in the form of electronic content or in any other form that the license pool is equipped to handle. Each stakeholder retains ownership over their contributed content and grants a non-exclusive license to other community members while receiving a license to content others have placed in the pool in return. That's called a cross-license. The license grant lasts for so long as the assets are in the pool. Stakeholders can withdraw content from the pool, but must take responsibility for harms, if any, done to others who have already invested in the content prior to its withdrawal. The license grant is subject to a fair share royalty, the amount of which can be determined on a case-by-case basis for each publication request. Stakeholders are obligated to pay this royalty to content contributors when income is earned from publishing content. For you tax attorneys out there, much of the income that Wikido pays to its stakeholders comes in the form of royalties. Wikido provides data rooms for licensed content with auditable histories, so it is clear which content was included in the pool at any given time. If it's accessible via the data room and flagged as property of its contributor, the content is in the pool. Otherwise, the content is not in the pool. Both electronic content and physical property can be tagged with tokens and keys, so its status in the pool is clear. Chances are, if you've rented an electric scooter left on the street, as can be seen in many cities around the world, you have already made use of such a license through your smartphone. Issues that arise around license pools, such as disputes over royalties or use of content, are handled according to the Wikido Peacemaker Compact. The relationship facilitator is just a name I've given to a set of tools and human arrangements for providing relationship management functions. When I recorded this video, it was mostly in a concept or prototype stage, but it is at the heart of Wikido and a key priority. The relationship facilitator helps manage time tracking and scheduling for individual or group users. It enables payments and transfers with associated bookkeeping. The facilitator helps the stakeholder make and track the mutual promises they and others in the community have made. It assists with management of conflict resolution according to the Wikido Peacemaking Charter when mutual promises are broken. The facilitator can help with compatibility checking, matchmaking, and background checking for those interested. It handles administrative functions like bookkeeping and tax reporting for transactions made using the facilitator, portals, or debit cards. And it can assist with contract administration by providing an interface for goal and progress tracking, among other things. The relationship facilitator helps Wikido stakeholders do business with one another the Wikido way. A side note about mutual promises. I'm using the phrase to describe a range of enforceable commitments. There are contracts, which are mutual promises exchanged between named persons. I like to call promises made by one person to a group pledges. A Wikido corporate officer might make a pledge of good behavior to stakeholders in the corporation, for example. Professions are pledges made within the scope of a claim to professional competence, such as a doctor, lawyer, accountant, or engineer might make. For example, the Hippocratic Oath for health practitioners. In Wikido, you can make your own profession based on whatever claim to expertise you can offer. It's a bit like a general warranty. Social promises are pledges made to all those who have made the same or compatible pledge. As explained in my book Blockchain Faith, social promises can be used as a basis for rule-based conflict resolution without the need for lawmaking authorities. In other words, social promises enable maximally distributed governance. The relationship facilitator is available to all learners and should make mutual promises of all types easy to make and use. Learners get access to toolsets and other community resources. There are the Notion learner pages for learning how to use Wikido's database platform called Notion to maximum effect. There are weekly goal coaching and collaboration meetings online with breakout sessions for those working on shared goals together. There are the relationship facilitator online tools, the functions of which I've just described. Other resources include access to free and subscription-based online resources and opportunities to schedule introductory sessions with professionals, expert solution providers, and other helpful people. The greatest benefit is the opportunity to enlist the help of your fellow stakeholders in pursuing shared goals. The relationships you build by doing this will help you achieve your personal goals too. Finally, 100% of the basic fee is dedicated to learner benefits, perks, tools, and resources per a transparent, democratic process that every learner can participate in on a one-person, one-vote basis. Hopefully, by pooling a little bit of money every month, we can achieve many times the benefit of what we could achieve by spending the basic fee for individual needs. Incentives are fun and can make a real difference in quality of life by enhancing productivity. Wikido productivity points include shared spending cards. Learners working on a shared goal can receive virtual debit cards for making purchases in support of the shared goals. Wikido will distribute productivity points based on transparent measures of productivity. Producers and creators can exchange productivity points for shares in the Wikido entities, while learners can earn and trade productivity points but can't redeem them for Wikido entity shares. Learners can become producers for a short time to redeem their productivity points for shares and then revert back to learner status without losing the benefit of the shares they have obtained. In addition, anybody redeeming productivity points for equity shares in a Wikido entity must be an active participant in that entity when redeeming. Bounties can be offered by any stakeholder for performing a defined task or meeting a defined goal. Hopefully, some Wikido shareholders will be able to earn a living mainly by collecting these bounties. Productivity awards can be paid by creators to those producers and learners who have been especially helpful in achieving shared goals. These incentives are in addition to contract payments and other paid offers which the Wikido community offers to all stakeholders. Ethically governed community includes token-based voting at each stakeholder level. Learners can vote on proposals governing the learner license pool and funds received from the basic fee. Producers and creators likewise vote on management of producer license pools. Token-based voting based on productivity points or other voting method can be used depending on the license pool's charter. Shareholders are producers or creators, or former producers or creators, who have redeemed their productivity points for shares in one or more Wikido entities. Shareholders vote their shares to appoint entity directors, officers, or managing members, to amend entity formation agreements, and other entity business. Governance includes the defined charters for license pools, organizing agreements for entities, and all other mutual promises by and between Wikido stakeholders. Every stakeholder is entitled to participate in conflict resolution per the Wikido principles. This means that no matter how powerful the individual Wikido stakeholders become, they are accountable to any other stakeholder with a principled grievance worth presenting. No one is above the principles. Wikido management is accountable to keep their managerial promises. To prevent managers from being flooded by complaints, Wikido entities can indemnify their managers for authorized managerial actions. I hope that these features of ethical governance will keep stakeholders on a level playing field and ensure fairness among stakeholders in Wikido. Do not fear the reputation slate. It's just a record holding mostly positive credentials. But know this, the reputation slate can be used as a weapon of mass destruction. Be sure to design them so they are not easily abused or captured by evildoers. Here's an idea for a safer reputation slate. Make it work like a wallet, where you can keep your government-issued IDs, admission tickets, hall passes, keys, currencies, and other stuff. The trick is to respect privacy and let people base their decisions accordingly. Leave people free to make their own decisions about security because needs and preferences differ. For example, all the security guards need to know is whether or not you're safe to admit. They don't need to know your name. Reputation wallets can be great for that because you can design them so responses to identity queries can be exquisitely configured under the holder's control. Let people decide for themselves how much information they need to transact with you, and build wallets that can't easily be used as tools for fraud. That's ethical disclosure. Okay, with any credential, the credibility of the issuer matters. Some hall passes are better than others. There's a business opportunity here in credible credentialing. Wikido, as a neutral entity in the reputation business, is positioned to capture this opportunity. Credentials can be all sorts of things. You can put your own professional or social promises in your wallet and collect positive feedback there. It's better than a resume because the source of the feedback can easily be verified. Issuers can put expiration dates on their credentials, just like in the real world. Nothing new there. Every time you post on social media, you are inviting positive and negative feedback. Pledges are no different. If you accept feedback and get a lot, some of it is going to be negative, and some of that negative feedback will be unfair, and some of that unfair feedback may be intended to victimize you. For this reason, fair and cost-effective conflict resolution has to be part of the solution to unfair feedback. We need neutral and credible people to help settle or overturn unfair feedback, and we need networks of these autonomous civil neutrals for every level of conflict. Wikido aspires to help build and maintain networks of these civil jurors, notaries, mediators, and arbitrators. Here's an example of ethical disclosure of a reputation slate, assigning green, yellow, red levels to the relevant topic. In Wikido, we use 3 levels to indicate stakeholder integrity. Green means no real issues, yellow means some issues, and red means serious issues. Any stakeholder can see any other stakeholder's integrity level, but they can't see the details without permission from the stakeholder. That's the design goal. The exact algorithm for setting integrity level will stay in development indefinitely because hackers will always be with us. Someone will always try to game the system. But here's the thing about Wikido. Once a stakeholder, always a stakeholder. You can't be ejected for having a red integrity level. Instead, you will be encouraged to repair your reputation and restore your integrity status to green. In the meantime, Wikido administrators can use the freely available integrity levels to control access for security purposes. In the last slide, we touched on selective disclosure of wallet contents, for example, filtering wallet contents by parameters such as time period or category. The danger with filtering is when the recipient is unaware of what kind of filtering is going on. They won't have any idea of what you're hiding. In Wikido, the sort of filtering going on should be visible to the stakeholder who is receiving the reputation disclosure, so a partial reputation slate can't be presented as a full slate. However, expired demerits can always be omitted without notice, otherwise expiration of the demerit is meaningless. So that's the story for learners. For producers, every stakeholder, except for neighbors, has access to all the learner benefits. In addition, producers are eligible to join all Wikido license pools for which they have something to contribute. They just need to sign up and agree to the license pool's charter. Producers are eligible to redeem productivity tokens for shares in Wikido entities, subject to individual ownership caps. Under the Wikido joint venture agreement, no one can own a fraction of shares greater than 1/5 or 3 divided by the total number of shareholders, whichever is smaller. Producers can also enjoy enhanced perks, such as higher limits on shared spending cards, higher bounties, and greater rewards. And, in addition to the relationship facilitator, producers enjoy access to toolsets and resources shared among contributors to license pools. Fees. Producers pay higher fees than learners, but most of the producer fee is rebated from net revenues of the license pools in which the producer participates. The only part that is not eligible for a rebate is the producer's own learner basic fee plus a second learner basic fee for anyone the producer cares to sponsor. This encourages sponsorships and helps fund the learner license pool. If the producer license pool is profitable, the producer can earn incentive payments on any portion of accrued producer fees that is not yet rebated, for example, some percentage per year. The details of the incentive payment will be set forth in the license pool charter. Creators! Creators get all the learner and producer benefits. In addition, they can found and fork Wikido license pools. They can exercise this license pool power by themselves or get together with other creators and jointly found a license pool. Founding a license pool is like a sponsorship in that the creator fees, less the basic fee deductions, is dedicated to pursuing the goals of the license pool. The creator or creators sponsoring the license pool enjoy governing privileges such as appointing officers to manage the pool and setting the quarterly goals the officers are to pursue. In this way, creators act like directors of their license pools, similar to corporate directors. Each license pool also has stakeholders who are the producers and creators who have earned productivity points by servicing the pool. Governance details for the license pool are provided in its charter. Creators enjoy enhanced perks, such as higher limits on spending cards as compared to producers. Like producers, creators are never passive investors. They must actively participate in their license pool, even if only in an oversight role. Creators pay higher base fees than producers and enjoy rebates and incentives just like producers. However, 4 times the learner base fee is deducted from the creator fees to fund the learner license pool, and the creator can sponsor up to 3 learners out of their base creator fee. The balance of the creator fee goes to fund the creator license pool. Any producer or creator can always sponsor additional learners by paying additional basic fees. A quick word about entities. Wikido entities can be state-registered entities with their own bank accounts, operating agreements, and governance, or they can be hosted by another entity. For example, the Wikido learner and producer pools are hosted by Ricardium DAO LLC, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of DePublica, a C corporation that complies with Wikido's entity requirements for 100% Wikido stakeholder ownership. Hosting is a great way to start up a new venture without all the overhead of registering and maintaining a new entity. It can be hosted by Ricardium or other Wikido member entity until the new venture has enough income or investment to justify forming its own registered entity. Any newly formed entity will be automatically eligible to join the Wikido joint venture, or if its shareholders prefer to accept non-member investors, it can be spun out of Wikido. However, certain core entities, for example, Wikido's learner and producer license pools, are essential to the function of Wikido and cannot be spun out. Because not all interested participants can afford applicable fees, a certain percentage of learner passes are offered for free as scholarships based on merit of scholarship applicants. Learners can sponsor other learners, producers can sponsor other producers or learners, and creators can sponsor at any level. Fees paid for sponsorship above the learner level are rebatable to the sponsor, subject to deductions for basic learner fees, and sponsorships are eligible for incentive payments like any other fee. To recap, learner fees are paid 100% for learner benefits and are not rebatable. Producer fees are rebatable after deducting twice the basic learner fee. Creator fees are rebatable after deducting 4 times the basic learner fee. Accrued rebatable fee payments are eligible to earn incentive payments per the license pool's charter. The idea is that if the license pool is successful in generating income, the creators and producers will earn most of their fees back, plus a profit incentive in proportion to the amount of accrued fees and the amount of time before the rebate is paid. Producers and creators can waive their right to receive rebates, in which case the fee payments are treated as a donation. This may be most appropriate for nonprofit entities and license pools. Revenue or benefit allocation from each license pool is defined by its charter. After payment of direct costs of sales and overhead, net revenue is allocated in proportion to productivity points and accrued fees paid in support of the license pool. For example, a charter might specify that the first 30% of net revenue is used to pay incentives and rebates to creators and producers or to their sponsors. The next 10% might go into an operating reserve up to a defined cap, and the balance would be paid to members of the license pool as royalties, dividends, or perquisites. Recipients of cash income can reinvest in the license pool by sponsoring additional producers, which enhances the Wikido ecosystem and increases its value for everyone. Entity members of the Wikido joint venture are subject to certain equity requirements. First, each entity's voting shares are non-transferable. The shares can only be obtained by redeeming productivity points and only by producers and creators. However, entities are permitted to issue transferable non-voting dividend-bearing shares for cash or productivity points. In addition, each joint venture must have an ownership cap of 1/5 or 3/n, whichever is smaller, in which N is the total number of shareholders in the entity. The entity must issue productivity points for the license pools it manages not less frequently than quarterly, in proportion to a fair and objective productivity measure for the corresponding quarter of activity. Productivity points, if not redeemed for shares, can be traded with or gifted to other Wikido shareholders. Why Wikido? Here's some goals I hope for. A thriving and safe stakeholder community, a good place to make and keep friends. Shared resources that are managed by competent stewards for the benefit of all stakeholders. Ownership of community assets in the hands of the stakeholders who helped build up those assets by working for the community. Valuable shared knowledge, content, and resource pools. Effective, fair, and efficient relationship management that makes it easier to find the help you need, to find the niche where you are most appreciated, and incentivizes healthy, mutually productive relationships. Centers for learning and leadership, energized and empowered by the principles of peacemaking, integrity, and mutuality. A global force for cooperation to fill every worthy need. Only with your help can we achieve these goals. Give what you can. Although Wikido is not a charity, it is operated for a mutual benefit, like many community groups you may have been a part of. Community can't work without everybody giving what they can. If you can't afford the basic monthly fee, give something else instead. There are so many ways to help. Most of all, invite your friends. Wikido will not grow by inviting millions of strangers and selling their data. That's how social media works. Wikido will grow one person at a time as real people with good intentions invite their friends. Everybody should be invested in their membership and reputation. That's what will make Wikido a special and safe place to be, governed not by committees and wealthy investors, but by each of its members. You made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and peace be with you.